Hi friend, welcome to Landscape Elevation. I'm Charlene Gray and I'm super excited to bring you today's topic. This is a topic I wish someone had explained to me when I first started out as a landscape designer. And if you have a heartbeat and you are or are considering being a landscape designer, this could also be a burning question for you. So the question of how much do I charge is a super hot topic when you're first starting out, but it also continues as you gain experience. So the question doesn't always go away. And the question that you'll pose to yourself, it will swing back and forth like a pendulum from am I charging too much to am I charging enough? So which way this pendulum swings will depend on the day. It will depend on your most recent conversation you've had with your client. And it may even depend on how much money you see in your bank account. If you see a lot of money in your bank account, you might think, do I deserve all of this money? If you don't see a lot of money in your bank account, you might think, I need more money, I need to charge more. So today, I'd like to shed some light on how to figure out and arrive at a number that tells you how much you could be charging for your landscape design services, and how to feel confident in that number so that you can slow down that pendulum. So to begin with, many designers charge for their landscape services by the hour, while others charge by a percentage of the cost of the finished job. Today I'm going to talk about how to land on an hourly rate to charge for your services. Because two things. One, I think the hourly rate way of charging is more common. And two, the hourly rate is way more straightforward to begin with when you're starting to think about how much you should charge. And I guess I just thought of this other one. The hourly rate will also inform a per diem rate. Some designers charge per diem, meaning per day. So they'll charge a flat fee per hour. So if you have an hourly rate, you can easily figure out your per diem rate. Okay, so the first thing you'll need to do to figure out your hourly rate is research. So by research, I mean you need to find out two things. Finding out these two things will inform you how you should be pricing yourself in your local market. So the first thing you need to do is find out how much gardeners and landscape maintenance companies bill clients per hour in your area. So by gardeners, I mean the individuals who get hired by homeowners to come to their property and care for and maintain their home gardens. These individual gardeners are likely to be self-employed, and they probably work alone, but they also probably hire other individuals to help them on an as-needed basis. So the homeowners hire gardeners to do spring and fall cleanups, plant annual plants in garden beds and in pots, and also come to the property just on a regular basis to make sure the gardens are looking their best. So they weed, they deadhead, they sweep, etc. They may or may not mow lawns. So you may find that a typical experienced gardener charges their clients per hour of work, and you need to figure out how much that is. So to give you an example, in my area, experienced self-employed gardeners were charging last year, 2024, between $40 and $60 per hour. So the lower rate at $40 per hour is typically charged by folks who know they have less experience and or knowledge, garden knowledge. They probably haven't fully developed their eye when it comes to details. But then the higher rate at $60 an hour this is being charged by the gardeners who feel like they have way more experience and knowledge, and they pay very close attention to details. And they have found clients who can afford to pay them $60 an hour. Okay, so you found the gardeners. Now in comparison, you'll want to find bigger landscape maintenance companies who have higher overhead costs than self-employed gardeners. So these bigger companies usually have access to bigger equipment, which means they have to pay for bigger equipment. So that's where their overhead comes from. So like trucks, mowers, etc. And then also if they do landscape construction, they may also have bobcats, excavators, bigger dump trucks, and things like that. So all to say, these bigger companies tend to charge more per hour per crew member because of these overhead costs. So in my area, a typical crew member for a bigger landscape company is $55 per hour, up to maybe $70 per hour. Okay, so first you're going to do what I just said. So find out how much self-employed gardeners and the bigger landscape maintenance companies are charging per hour in your area. So after you have these ranges, you're going to find out some more ranges. And so you're going to find landscape architects and or civil engineers in your area, and you're going to find out how much they bill per hour. So landscape architects and civil engineers are state licensed occupations. So they need to meet their state's specific qualifications in order to practice their jobs. And these specs vary by state. So landscape architects and civil engineers are licensed professions because they typically work on large-scale projects that see high public use. Landscape designers might be consulted on these types of projects, but they don't sign off on the structural integrity of high-traffic public use projects. So as of now, and this is early 2025, landscape designers are not required to be licensed by their state to work. So landscape designers are more likely to work on private residential projects, some of which may be at a large enough scale that they request to have a landscape architect or civil engineer sign off for structural integrity on the designer project. But this would likely be for their own reassurance, unless they're working in a jurisdiction that requires it. In my area, landscape architects are charging about $140 per hour, and civil engineers are charging about $200 an hour. So now you have a lot more numbers. So how do you do this research? You make phone calls, you do internet searches. Maybe you can find out about people by looking at community bulletins, either virtually or in person. But whatever you do, however you find these or seek to find these numbers, don't be shy about asking questions. Most people are happy to share this information. So now what do you do with what you've learned from these hourly rate research quests? So you're going to use these numbers to gauge your hourly rate against. As a landscape designer, likely starting out, you'll fall somewhere in between the landscape gardener and bigger companies and the landscape architects and civil engineers. So knowing these other rates will help you feel confident in your rate. So, and again, you may notice that when you're starting out, your rate will fall somewhere in between there. But as you gain industry experience as a landscape designer, your rate will creep up and maybe even surpass the landscape architect and the civil engineer rates. Okay, so exactly where it lands will depend on three things. So your level of experience, what type of clients you're trying to attract, and your confidence in your hourly rate and the work you do. So I'll lay out the ways you can start zeroing in on your hourly rate depending on your experience level, which I've broken down into 4 experience levels. Now, caveat, remember, these are guidelines. I'm not telling you how much to charge. You get to decide that for yourself. What I am offering is a way for you to hone in on what you could charge if you choose to. Okay, so if you are a super beginner, never had a client, or maybe you're past your first client and you're moving on to your second and third client, my advice would be this. Take the low-end gardener rate that you found and multiply that number by 150%. Here's an example with this formula. So just say you found the cheapest gardener to charge $34 per hour. So you're going to take out your calculator and you're going to type 34 times 1.5. That's 150%. And you hit equals, and it equals 51. And so this means, going with this formula, you would charge your first client, or second, third, you're still a beginner, under 2 years, $51 per hour for design work. Okay, so moving on past beginner phase. So let's say you've completed a few jobs, maybe you have 2 to 4 years experience with designing, and you've seen some of your jobs being built, so you're continuing to learn and you're continuing to hone your practice. So in this case, I would say take the low-end gardener rate that you found and multiply that by 175%. So here's an example. So you found the lowest charging gardener rate in your area to be, say, $36 an hour. So this is a little bit higher than the 34, but it's been a few years. So that gardener maybe has gone up from 34 to 36. You're going to type into your calculator 36 times 1.75, and you get 63. So your rate is going up to $63 per hour. $63 per hour is 175% higher than $36 per hour. Okay, so that was level 2. You've got 2 to 4 years experience. Now let's say you're continuing to grow and you are up to 5 to 10 years experience. You have your systems down. You've hit your stride as a landscape designer. In this case, I would say take the high-end gardener rate that you found and multiply that rate by 150%. So keep in mind, you might have to keep finding out what the new gardener rates are as you raise your rates. Okay, don't use the old rates from 5 years ago when you first started. Find new rates and then do these formulas. Okay, so the high-end rate times 150%. Here's the example. Let's say your high-end rate gardener was $62 per hour. So you're going to type into your calculator 62 times 1.5, and you get 93. So your rate is going from, $63 per hour to $93 per hour. Okay, so 10 years have passed now since you started. You have reached the point in your career where you're being a lot more selective about the clients and the jobs you take on, and this alone puts you in a league of your own. And as such, you may find that you can charge the same or more as landscape architects and civil engineers because you're that good. And you have the right word of mouth, and you have an hourly rate that clients are happy to pay for, and that proves your hourly rate is acceptable to the marketplace. So in this case, let's say, I'm going to say, I would put your floor on your hourly rate at 225% of the high-end gardener rate. And here's how this works. So let's say you found the high-end gardener rate to be $64 per hour. You're going to type into your calculator 64 times 2.25, and you get 144. So your hourly rate has risen to $144 per hour. And depending on the demand for your expertise and the time you have available to commit to jobs, your rate just rises from there. So 144 is the floor. Okay, so there you have it. That's how you figure out how much you can charge for your hourly rate for landscape design services based on your level of experience, and how you compare those to the going rates for similar services in your area. I hope this has given you the confidence to charge what you are worth. When you can charge what you're worth, you'll gain more confidence in getting better jobs, getting better clients, and obviously the satisfaction in your finished product. So, thank you for tuning in to Landscape Elevation. I invite you to download my free guide using the link below and use it as you navigate your design process. So as always, I love hearing from you. If you're a landscape designer and there's something you would love to hear me talk about, please let me know in the comments. So thanks again, and see you next time. Take care.